Hi again, everybody. This video is sponsored by contribution from Wendy, and here's her story. Hi, I'm Wendy, the Cinderella servant who grew up in New York from the video. The only thing you should do in memory of the narcissist is tell the truth. I had the controlling divorced narc mom with primary custody who formed a narc alliance with dad's family, Uncle Frank and Grandma. I had the abusive golden child brother Brian, who died of an accidental overdose. I moved out in my mid-20s, met a guy, got married, and life in my new state got better. I am no contact and staying that way. Thank you for your commentary on my first story. I hadn't thought of my brother as an enabler and maybe a narc. I think I've been feeling the loss of the brother I wish I had rather than the one I actually had. Because the one I had was such an asshole. You were right. He saw me as a piece of shit servant, like the rest of the family. He didn't want to go out in public with me and barely acknowledge my existence. When we were teenagers, he got me on the floor in a headlock to show me he could beat the shit out of me if he wanted. When I was 17 and Brian was around 15, he found my private journal. I wrote that I was back in contact with my dad and how I hated my mom and Brian. Brian lost his shit screaming that I was a bitch and how dare I have a relationship with dad. He threw my journal in the toilet and pissed on it. Mom stood there watching. Brian stomped away and Mom told me to clean it up. Another time he came home angry about something and spat in my face when I said hello. Of course, Mom was fine with that. You guessed it. Brian wasn't contacting me as an adult. Obviously, he didn't give a shit about me, so I haven't set up a memorial like you said in my first story I was thinking of doing. I'll try not to repeat details about my narcs from my first story. Maybe everything can just be explained by my family making me a piece of shit servant so I wouldn't be a financial loss. I figured out a lot, but some of the things still eat at me. I want to share my stories. I want to share so my stories can help other people. I always knew something was wrong in my family and I hated them. Mom blamed dad and the divorce, but I could smell the bullshit. In the winter of 2015, I saw that TV show Dexter, and the triggers were overwhelming. I was suddenly crying a lot in a really dark place. I started researching narcissism, went no contact, started asking dad about the family, started therapy, and found your channel. This story is mainly about when I was sick. I was 15 years old with abdominal pain on a Thursday in spring of 1994. Mom took me to a doctor on Friday who suggested appendicitis and go to the emergency room. Mom was so irritated. I was vomiting and she snapped when they did a pregnancy test because she told the nurse I was a virgin. Soon I was vomiting bile and had uncontrollable diarrhea. They sent me to pediatrics, but nobody told me what was wrong or what they were doing to me, even when they did painful, invasive procedures. Mom left and came back the next day with 12-year-old Brian. He was laughing at me, taunting and poking me in the hospital bed. I was crying and said, please stop and leave me alone. Mom yelled at me to be nice to them or they'd leave. And they left. On Sunday, I still didn't know what was wrong. I remember being alone for uncomfortable procedures. I didn't care if I lived or died anyway. Mom came back Sunday and berated me about school tomorrow. She growled that I better not get behind and would bring my books and work. Sunday afternoon, I finally got a CAT scan. I had to drink a big jug of contrast fluid. It tasted disgusting and was hard to drink with nausea and the abdominal pain. Mom yelled at me to drink faster and said I was keeping the hospital employees waiting when they wanted to go home. The CAT scan showed a ruptured appendix and I needed emergency surgery. Mom didn't seem concerned. She told me the doctors didn't think it was appendicitis because I wasn't complaining of enough pain, as if it was my fault, and she found it amusing. On the way to surgery, she was berating me for being too calm. She insisted they must have medicated me to keep me calm. When they When she said they didn't, I have been calm the whole time, she didn't believe me. I remember waking up alone after the surgery, then back in my room alone, groggy, barely able to move in bed and in pain for the next few days. I should have told the nurse about the pain, but I thought I was supposed to live with it and not be a bother to anyone. The hospital was 15 minutes from Mom and Grandma. Grandma didn't work and was in town rather than on one of her frequent international vacations. Uncle Frank was away, and Dad and my stepmother were about 4 hours away. Mom had a unionized government job with generous paid time off, less than 10 minutes from the hospital. She finished work at 4 p.m., but was always too busy for me. She said her supervisor wouldn't let her take time off, but if she did, her work would pile up too much. Her office was closed the Friday she took me to the emergency room. I got lucky. If it hadn't been a work day, who knows how much longer I would have waited for medical care. You know the drill, narc parents always think you're faking. She couldn't disrupt her routine because Brian was at home. Grandma wasn't helping watch Brian or neglecting her hobby while I was sick. By Wednesday, they removed the nasogastric tube and let me eat. I had no appetite and didn't like the hospital food, but Mom wouldn't bring me anything. Grandma visited once and brought me ice cream, which was uncharacteristically nice of her. Mom stopped by, but briefly, then left. I asked her to bring soap and shampoo. I hadn't washed in almost a week and felt so dirty. She said she didn't have time for that and wouldn't bring anything. She said not to bother the staff about it either. I asked anyway, and a night nurse got me out of bed, took me to the bathroom, and washed my hair. It was the nicest thing anybody had ever done for me. Mom never brought Brian back, and I didn't hear from him until I got home. That was a relief. Nobody brought clothes or a stuffed animal from home. My only friend of her mother, my only friend and her mother visited. I always thought they were so nice to me when, in reality, they were just treating me with respect and dignity. We knew I'd be discharged the following Monday morning. Mom made me wait all day to be picked up until she finished work. I wore the same clothes home I wore to the emergency room 11 days prior. I had lost so much weight they barely fit. Mom thought it was a good thing. She laughed and said, "I bet you want to fumigate yourself in the shower." I was used to being lonely. I knew if these narcs were in the hospital with me, they would have been a nightmare, but it was still shitty of them to just leave me there. Being alone in the hospital sucks. I wanted the family I wished I had to be there with me, not the one I actually had. Dad sent a card. I wonder if Mom and Grandma didn't tell him I was sick until after the fact, just so I could think he didn't care. My math teacher had the class sign a card and sent it to my house. It meant so much to me that the math teacher noticed I was absent and gave a fuck. I was supposed to be out of school another few weeks, not participate in gym the rest of the year, and rest. The school paid for in-home tutors. We lived a 20-minute walk from school after the surgery. Mom made me walk every day with my backpack and a band instrument anyway. I was so tired. My classes were done one period before the end of the school day, so I'd walk home and lay down. Mom yelled at me and said I should stay at school somewhere. Passed my math final with a score in the high 70s. Mom was furious because it wasn't good enough to get into honors math for 10th grade. She always said I had to get into a top college. She made me walk back to school on that hot day in June and talk my teacher into giving me a spot in honors math. I was crying. My math teacher seemed confused and said something like, "Your mother said what? But you were really sick. Don't worry, you don't need honors math. You'll be okay." Mom was angry when she got the hospital bill for over $20,000. I started crying and asked if this meant we lost everything. She laughed and said the insurance pays, so it won't cost her anything. The hospital fucked up. I should have had the CAT scan soon after arriving because most likely it would have shown appendicitis and said they waited 24 hours and it ruptured, making it a lot more serious and a longer hospital stay than a regular appendectomy. My narcs aren't the brightest, but did they really not see a problem? Or did mom not care? Because no matter what happened to me, she didn't have to pay the bill or change her daily schedule. My math teacher was right. Missing a month of school in honors math didn't hurt my adult life. The idea that your life will be shit unless you go to a top college is stupid. As an adult, I became a nerd through the public university system here in New Jersey against my family's wishes. My mom was always yelling about my grades and music performance, but she didn't want me to actually succeed as an adult. School was something to abuse me over, to brag to her coworkers about. I only got to do rote learning and memorization. My family didn't let me develop problem-solving skills, assertiveness, or leadership abilities. The school selected me for a gifted program in the 6th grade where kids could explore and think. Mom bragged about how I was chosen, but quickly pulled me out of the program. She knew I hated band and music performance. She was mad when I got 1,300 on the SAT. She made me take a prep class with homework every Sunday afternoon for months and take the test again. When I got 1,300 on my second SAT, she was so pissed. Nobody talked to me about a future career or life options. They just berated me for being less than perfect grades or music, and told me that I wasn't allowed to do with my life. Around this time, mom's sister was murdered, I guess about age 40. Mom babysat her younger siblings as a kid and told me how cruel she was to them. Her sister moved across seas and never had any contact with her. I don't blame her for leaving. Mom rarely spoke of her, but Dad said she hated her sister and often called her a slut. Mom told me her boyfriend reported her missing and sold all her stuff. Sometime later, she told me they found her body. Mom said this casually and didn't seem upset. She never mentioned her sister again. I didn't connect the dots until recently, but when I got my own bank account in my mid-20s and moved out, Mom demanded I make her the beneficiary. So Mom was thinking about me dying at 24, and her main concern was money. She was pissed when I said no. I guarantee you your mother had a life insurance policy on you as a child. That's why she didn't care if you lived or died. She would have made money off it. I guarantee you your mother had a life insurance policy on you as a child. There's a pattern in my family with younger people dying and people not seeming to care. It wasn't just my mom's sister, whose name I don't even know. The narc seemed unfazed when Brian overdosed at 29. Mom had a total of 5 nephews. She isolated me from all of them. She knew one of the nephews had a childhood cancer. His family moved to Florida and she visited a few times. Brian and I weren't allowed to go or have contact with these kids. Her relationship with them faded over the years and her nephew died as a teenager. She didn't seem bothered by the news or go to the funeral. I didn't think she cared if I died in the hospital. She didn't. She was probably rooting for it. I wish I had picture evidence of my childhood and young adulthood. Before no contact, I asked Mom, but she wouldn't send any. I guess she's afraid of being exposed. I asked Dad and he shared everything he had. He had some before the divorce and from visitation in Florida where life was normal. There were some of Brian taken over the years that Grandma sent to him. Either Mom and Grandma took few or no pictures of me or didn't bother to send a copy to Dad, but I had practically nothing. This is my life, not my family's, and I like pictures if they exist. Something hilarious about my grandma and Uncle Frank is they think they're nobility. They did a genealogy research and said they found a baroness in Italy. Uncle Frank started referring to Grandma as Baroness and our matriarch. He got t-shirts, bags, hats, and stationery made with a family seal on it. I was the only one who wasn't given anything with the stupid family seal. I didn't want it anyway. One fancy birthday parties and invitations calling her Baroness and request that all gifts must be handmade by the guest. They had the bakery put the family seal on her cake and happy birthday Baroness. Their big hoarder house and family seal stuff displayed. Dad sometimes went on vacation with them before no contact. He was embarrassed yet on another trip to Italy when they bragged to anyone who listened that they were noble family from there. Except Dad, they're all such toxic people. I hate them. All these years later, I'm still amazed I escaped. Thank you again for your time. You do amazing work. Well, Wendy, I do remember your story. I remember the first one. And look, I'm telling you, your mother had a life insurance policy on you and didn't care if you lived or died. These are not your mother. They connect with nobody, and that should be evidenced by the golden child brother was allowed to piss on your journal, with your mother watching and laughing. Pissed on your journal, they piss on your life and laugh at it. That is your moment, and at your lowest time, you're still being tortured. And your mother, the government job, she could take off whatever time she wanted on a government job. I guarantee you, your mother had a life insurance policy on you, and she wanted you to die. The narcissist pisses on your whole life, and they will continue to piss on your whole life. That's just what they do. That's what your mother did, and that's what she continued to do right through the end. She pissed on you. She pisses on everybody. That's why her sister hated her. That's why she's no contact from so many people, to keep herself from being exposed. So thank you again for your contribution. Thank you for your story. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a narcissist you'd like to expose or a topic you'd like me to cover, you know what to do with the PayPal and my email links in the description box. And remember, when you do send me your story, please put at the top of the email whether it's with or without contribution and what name you'd like to go by. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon.